Good morning, everyone. So today we are going to discuss about the arterial system, means blood supply of the head and neck. So before going to the blood supply of head and neck, I want to discuss about the overall circulation. So coming to the arterial circulation, so what is that single word we can define? What is that aorta? So that aorta itself supplies the entire body. Here you see here the picture showing the entire course of the aorta. So the aorta is divided into three parts: the ascending part, descending part, and in between there is a arch. So these are the three parts of the aorta supply the entire body. So how it is supplying? See here, this ascending part of aorta supplies the heart, whereas means the ascending aorta gives rise to branches which are giving nutritious blood, means arterial supply to the heart. Whereas the arch of aorta, by giving three important branches, here you can see from right to left side, three branches are there. This is brachiocephalic trunk, and the middle is the left common carotid, and this is left subclavian artery. So by giving these three branches, they are supplying the upper part of the body. So what is that upper part? It includes the head and neck, entire head and neck, and the upper extremities. So what are these three branches? Here you can appreciate the rightmost is the brachiocephalic trunk. So the brachiocephalic is actually unnamed branch. By its course, we are giving name brachiocephalic. So why it is giving? The brachiocephalic trunk further divides into the right common carotid and the right subclavian artery. So it is named as brachiocephalic trunk, as you know already, right? So the subclavian artery supplying the right upper limb, whereas the right common carotid enters the neck, where it divides into two important terminal branches, which will be discussed later. So what is this? Common carotid artery entering in the neck. Then the second branch is left common carotid artery. So here it supplies the left part of the head and neck, and the left subclavian artery supplies the left superior extremity. So because this subclavian artery continues here, so the later parts axillary artery then continues as a brachial artery, so where it supplies the upper limb. Then the descending part, you see the part present in the thorax supplies the thoracic part, whereas by piercing the diaphragm, it enters into the abdomen as abdominal aorta. So the rest part of the body is supplied by this descending aorta. So the only term aorta, we can tell the entire body how it is nourished by the arterial blood. So what is that? Aorta, ascending aorta, arch of aorta, descending aorta. Now coming to this picture, see this is a dissected specimen. You can see the lateral view of the head and neck region. So after dissecting the skin and fascia, we can able to appreciate all these blood vessels here. So here these are the superficial bloods, these are the superficial veins, then this is a deep vein. Along with that artery we can appreciate. So what is this artery? It is a carotid trunk. So what is that carotid trunk? We'll discuss in the next slides. So these are the great blood vessels present in the neck. So after the completion of session, you are able to know about these points. You see carotid system of arteries. What is this carotid system? So the internal common carotid artery, further it divides into internal and external, thereby it provides an entire blood supply to the neck and head. So we should know what is the carotid system of arteries. Then what is the common carotid artery and how it is bifurcated into internal and external carotid by giving various branches, and along their course, what are the important relations which we have to know because they are clinically important. Then what is the subclavian arterial trunk? As you see, the blood supply to the head and neck is mostly derived from the common carotid, means carotid system of arteries, and the rest is contributed by the subclavian artery. Why? What is the reason? We'll see in the next slide. Then what is the development of these various arteries? Then what is a venous system? So it is mainly contributed by the jugular venous system. So the jugular venous system includes the superficial veins, which are external and anterior jugular, then deep vein, which is internal jugular vein, then what are the tributaries. So finally, what is the applied importance of these various blood vessels, we'll discuss in the detail. Now coming to the great blood vessels of the neck. So what are these great blood vessels? So why they are called as great blood vessels? Because the arteries are contributing the major supply to this head and neck, whereas major drainage for the veins, it is contributed by the jugular venous system. So the carotid system of arteries and subclavian artery, whereas veins are superficial and deep jugular veins. So jugular venous system contributes the venous drainage. Now coming to the common carotid artery. So what is this common carotid artery? Already in the first slide I have explained. So what is this common carotid artery? It varies in both right and left sides. So right side, what is this common carotid artery? The common carotid artery takes origin from the brachiocephalic trunk, exactly just behind the medial end of the clavicle. So what is the extent of the right common carotid? Exactly behind the medial end of the clavicle, the brachiocephalic trunk gives rise to this right common carotid artery. So the right common carotid extends from the medial end of the clavicle to the level of the upper border of the thyroid cartilage. So this is the extent of the common carotid. Medial end of the clavicle to the upper border of the thyroid cartilage, where at this level means it lies the intervertebral, means exactly opposite the what is the vertebral level for this extent, means to where the common carotid extends. So exactly opposite to the intervertebral disc between C3 and C4. So it represents the upper border of the thyroid cartilage. So at this level, what happens? The common carotid bifurcates into internal and external carotid arteries. Whereas on the left side, the left common carotid is a direct branch from the arch of aorta, just behind the manubrium. So it has the left common carotid partly present in the thorax, then appears in the neck, just deep to the medial end of the clavicle. Otherwise, what is the joint present here between the clavicle and the sternum? Sternoclavicular joint. So where exactly deep to the sternoclavicular joint, we can see the common carotid artery enters into the neck. So this is the extent of the common carotid artery. So what is the course? Here, throughout its course, it is present within the enclosure, which is, what is that enclosure? It is derived from the superficial, deep cervical fascia. So what is the deep cervical fascia? Already discussed. So the deep cervical fascia enclosing these great blood vessels of the neck. So what are these great blood vessels? Arteries on the medial side and vein is lateral. So what is this? Internal jugular vein, and medially carotid. In between, posteriorly, there is a vagus nerve. So these structures are enclosed by means of a deep cervical fascia. What is the deep cervical fascia? Enclosed here, carotid sheath. So this carotid sheath. Within this carotid sheath, we can appreciate both common carotid artery and internal carotid artery. But the extra carotid artery is outside the carotid sheath. So as it present in this carotid sheath, what is the important relation for this common carotid? Anteriorly. So anteriorly, that is the ansa cervicalis, the loop of nerve plexus present on the anterior aspect of the carotid sheath, which supplies the muscles adjacent. So which are infrahyoid muscles. Okay. So what is this? Carotid sheath enclosing this common carotid artery throughout the course. And in addition, it encloses this internal carotid artery also. So this is common carotid, and there is no any single branch from this common carotid artery except this bifurcated, means termination. So what is a termination? Is nothing but in the form of external and internal carotid artery. So here all the infrahyoid muscles lies anterior to this and medial to this carotid sheath. Then what is the internal carotid artery? So here you see each common carotid artery bifurcates into external and internal. So the internal carotid artery is just lateral, whereas external carotid artery anteromedial to this internal carotid artery. But why, according to relation, the external carotid artery is medial, whereas internal carotid is lateral. But why these arteries are named as internal and external carotid arteries? Because of their supply. The internal carotid artery supplies the structure inside the skull, whereas the external carotid artery supplies outside the skull, means the face, neck, all these structures, scalp, including scalp, supplied. So internal and external carotid arteries. Now coming to the internal carotid artery, see by its course. So what is the extent of internal carotid artery? So it extends from the upper border of the thyroid cartilage to the base of the skull. This is the extent of the internal carotid artery from the level of the upper border of the thyroid cartilage, means the junction between C3, C4, particular level, to the base of the skull. So at the base, there is a opening for this internal carotid artery through which it enters into the bone. What is this bone? Petrous part of the temporal bone. So the internal carotid artery partly present in the cervical region, means neck region, which is known as cervical part. That is the first segment of the internal carotid artery. Then through the opening for this internal carotid artery. So what is this opening? Carotid canal. So this carotid canal presents an inferior opening, and here this is an anterior opening. So in between this part of the internal carotid artery present within the petrous bone. So this second segment of the internal carotid artery is also known as petrous part. So this is a petrous part. Then it leaves the petrous part through this opening. So what is this? Anterior opening of the carotid canal, just behind the foramen lacerum. So from here it appears in the carotid sulcus. So what is this carotid sulcus? Present in the okay. In the last slide, I will show you what is the carotid sulcus. So through this anterior opening of the carotid canal, the carotid artery leaves the petrous part, then enters into the bony sulcus present on the lateral aspect of the sulcus, sella turcica. So where it is present on either side of the body of the sphenoid, there is a slight groove which is occupied by the dural venous sinus. What is that sinus? Cavernous sinus. So in the medial wall of the cavernous sinus, this part of the artery, internal carotid artery, traverses further forwards. And here at this junction, here you can see a U-shaped loop. So what is this U-shaped loop? It leaves the carotid sinus and through the foramen, carotido-clinoid foramen, then it appears in the middle cranial fossa. So here it presents a U-shaped loop. Then further it has a forward and upward direction where it terminates into anterior cerebral and middle cerebral arteries. So this is a termination of the internal carotid artery. So what is the extent of the internal carotid artery? At the level of upper border of the thyroid cartilage to the carotido-clinoid foramen. So immediately after passing through this foramen, what happens? It bifurcates, means it terminates by means of anterior cerebral and posterior cerebral arteries. So by its course, the internal carotid artery divided into 4 parts. This is cervical part, first segment. The second part present within the carotid canal. So it passes just in front of the middle ear, means along the anterior wall of the middle ear. Then it appears on the medial wall of the cavernous sinus. Then in the middle cranial fossa, it divides into anterior and posterior cerebral. So what are the parts? Cervical part, petrous part, this is cavernous part, and this is cerebral part. So branches of internal carotid artery. The last class, in the neuroanatomy class, blood supply of the brain, discussed about these all the branches. So what are these branches? How the blood supply in the brain by giving three important branches: anterior cerebral and posterior cerebral, middle cerebral. So out of three, the anterior and middle cerebral are derived from this internal carotid artery. Here see, so these are the terminal branches of the internal carotid artery. And just before terminating, it provides one more important artery, that is the ophthalmic artery. So this is a major blood supply to the orbit. And here, this ophthalmic artery provides supraorbital and supratrochlear branches. And these branches are anastomoses with the external carotid artery, means outside the skull. So there is, here it establishes a collateral circulation between this internal carotid and with the branches of external carotid artery. And here you can see the middle cerebral artery provides one important branch, that is the posterior communicating artery. So here the posterior communicating artery involved in the articular circle of Willis, means at the base of the brain there is a circle of Willis, means arterial anastomosis between the branches of basilar artery and internal carotid. So what is this basilar artery? The basilar artery is derived from the fusion of the two vertebral arteries. You see in the vertebral artery how the basilar artery is formed. So this anastomosis among these branches so establishes a collateral circulation between, again, this is a branch from the subclavian artery. So between these subclavian artery branch, that is nothing but vertebral artery. So between vertebral artery and internal carotid artery, there is a collateral circulation. Then what are the special features of the internal carotid artery? See, this is a common carotid artery and this is a bifurcation of common carotid. So what is the bifurcation? Into laterally internal carotid and medially. Anteromedially, this is external carotid artery. Exactly at the bifurcation, this internal carotid artery is dilated and forms a fusiform dilation. You see, so which is known as carotid. This is a sinus-like structure. So what is this? Carotid sinus. So it's a dilation at the base of the internal carotid artery. Base of the internal carotid artery means exactly where the internal carotid artery arises, takes origin. And what is the importance of this carotid sinus? Here, this is referred to as a baroreceptor and is innervated by the carotid branch of glossopharyngeal nerve. So by this innervation, reflexly, so baroreceptor means it is a mechanoreceptor. It can able to recognize the pressure, blood pressure within the internal carotid artery. So it sends an information to the hypothalamus and it provides a, means it is regulating the blood flow throughout this. So very important. So what is this? Carotid sinus is a dilatation where present at the base of the internal carotid artery and it acts as a baroreceptor, and this particular dilatation is supplied by the glossopharyngeal nerve, that is a carotid branch of the glossopharyngeal nerve. Then in between this means external and internal carotid artery, there is a structure which is formed by these cells and surrounded by the nerves. So what is this? These cells and nerves means collectively they are forming a glomus-like structure which is known as carotid body. So here what is the nerve supply? The same branch, the carotid branch of the glossopharyngeal nerve is supplying, and these particular cells are act as receptors. So they are act as a chemoreceptor, where they can able to recognize the pH levels, means there is any change in the pH levels or oxygen level. So immediately, reflexly what happened? They will stimulate the respiratory centers in the brainstem. So thereby maintain the blood flow and the respiratory rate here. So these are the two structures, special features we can see at the level of the bifurcation of the common carotid artery. This is a carotid body tumor. So what is this carotid body tumor? You see here is this from the close to the bifurcation of the common carotid artery. So it's also known as a potato tumor, means that tumor represents the shape of the potato. So it is also known as potato tumor. External carotid artery. Coming to the actual means the main part of the blood supply to the neck region. So face and neck. So what is that? External carotid artery. So this is the line diagram. You can appreciate altogether how many branches arises from the external carotid artery. Then what is the extent of the external carotid artery? See, say at the level of upper border of the thyroid cartilage, the internal common carotid is bifurcating. So anteromedial branch is nothing but external carotid artery. So this external carotid artery extends up to the just behind the neck of the mandible. So just behind the neck of the mandible, what happened? It is bifurcating, means terminating into two important branches. The smaller terminal branch is superficial temporal artery. The larger terminal branch is the maxillary artery. So what is the extent of the external carotid artery? From the superior border of the thyroid cartilage to the just behind the neck of the mandible. So this is the extent. And what are the branches of the external carotid artery? So altogether 8 branches the external carotid artery gives origin, out of which only one is from the medial aspect, that is the ascending pharyngeal artery. The name indicates ascending pharyngeal artery, means it ascends from its origin along the lateral wall of the pharynx. So what is this? Ascending pharyngeal artery. Then from anterior aspect of the artery, 3 important branches are taking origin. What are the 3 branches from below upwards? Superior thyroid artery, lingual artery, facial artery. Sometimes this lingual artery and facial artery takes a common origin as faciolingual or linguofacial trunk. But usually these are the 3 separate branches from which aspect of the artery? Anterior aspect of the artery. So from anterior aspect, 3 branches: superior thyroid artery, lingual, facial. And exactly at the level of facial artery, the posterior aspect of external carotid gives off occipital artery. And just above that, before it entering in the, see, at the termination, it is present, means passing through the substance of the gland. So what is this gland present just in front and below the ear? Parotid gland. So we can see the termination of the external carotid artery within the substance of parotid. So just before terminating, means pre-terminating branch, just before terminating and below the ear, there is one more branch from the posterior aspect of the artery, that is posterior auricular artery. So these are 8 branches which takes origin from the external carotid artery. Here you can appreciate these branches. See, only one medial branch, that is ascending pharyngeal. We can't appreciate from lateral aspect. It is on the medial aspect. So from lateral aspect, you can appreciate all these branches. See, this is the first one, superior thyroid artery. It is going to supply the thyroid gland, and then lingual artery, then facial artery. Then from posterior aspect, the 2 important branches. This is occipital artery, then posterior auricular artery. After giving these branches within the substance of parotid gland, it terminates by giving superficial temporal and maxillary arteries. Coming to the ascending pharyngeal artery. See, this ascending pharyngeal artery, it ascends along the lateral wall of the pharynx. On its way, it provides an important branch, that is pharyngeal branch, to supply pharynx. In addition, it supplies the palatine tonsil. See, in addition, it supplies palatine tonsil. But the main contribution to the palatine tonsil is derived from facial artery. So, along these other branches, the ascending pharyngeal also supplies the palatine tonsil. Then inferior tympanic branch. See, this is inferior tympanic branch. So inferior tympanic means the floor of the tympanic cavity. Already discussed in middle ear. So the floor of the tympanic cavity or middle ear is pierced by an important nerve and vessel. So what is that nerve? Inferior tympanic nerve. Vessel is an inferior tympanic artery. So that inferior tympanic artery is derived from ascending pharyngeal artery. So what is the opening? Tympanic canaliculus. Then meningeal branches. So the meningeal branches taking origin from this ascending pharyngeal, passing through foramen lacidum, jugular foramen, and hypoglossal canal. So they are supplying the dura of the middle and posterior cranial fossa. Then coming to the superior thyroid artery. So this is a second branch taking origin from the external carotid. So the superior thyroid artery, just appreciate this bone, hyoid bone. This is a greater horn of the hyoid bone. This is tip of the greater horn. So what is the exact level from where it takes origin from the extracarotid artery? Just below the tip of the greater horn of the hyoid, the extracarotid artery gives origin to this superior thyroid artery. So this superior thyroid artery descends towards the thyroid gland. So on its course, it provides a first branch, that is infrahyoid artery. It passes below the hyoid and supplies the adjacent structures and anastomosis with the fellow of opposite side. Same, the infrahyoid branch from the superior thyroid, anastomosis in the midline. And after that, it provides an important branch, that is internal laryngeal artery. So means superior laryngeal passed. So that superior laryngeal artery accompanies this nerve here. So what is this nerve? Superior laryngeal nerve. So both are piercing the membrane between the hyoid bone and thyroid. So what is this membrane? Thyrohyoid membrane. So by piercing, these two structures enters into the wall of the larynx, where they supply the larynx, upper part of the larynx. So what are these two important structures? Superior laryngeal nerve and artery. So artery is a branch from the superior thyroid artery. After that, it descends further down, and here it provides one more branch to the cricothyroid muscle. So that is a cricothyroid branch. Then, and on its course posteriorly, sternomastoid branches. So these sternomastoid branches passes in front of the carotid sheath and supplies the sternocleidomastoid muscle. And finally, it gives a glandular branch. On reaching the upper pole of the thyroid, it bifurcates into anterior branch and posterior branch. So the anterior branch passes along the medial border of the lateral lobe of thyroid, and along the upper border of the isthmus, it anastomoses with the fellow of same branch from the opposite side. So this again it establishes a collateral circulation between the two extracarotid arteries. So this is a glandular branch. Whereas descending posterior branches descends along the posterior border of the thyroid and anastomoses with the inferior thyroid artery from the thyrocervical trunk. So these are the main branches: infrahyoid, superior laryngeal, cricothyroid, sternomastoid, and glandular branch. Here you see, this is important. Before going to ligate this artery, superior thyroid artery, where you have to ligate this artery, it must be close to the gland. So what happened in the upper part? This external laryngeal nerve and superior thyroid artery, they are very much closer. Whereas on reaching the gland, the nerve and vessel are deviating, so that we should ligate the superior thyroid artery close to the upper pole of the thyroid gland in surgeries. Then coming to the lingual artery. So the lingual artery is another anterior branch of the external carotid artery. So by its course, the lingual artery is divided into three segments in relation to one muscle. See here, this is the hyoglossus muscle. So in relation to hyoglossus, the lingual artery is divided into three branches. And it is already discussed in tongue class, right? So what is this lingual artery? Just I will tell what is the course. So this lingual artery, at its origin, it has a looped course. Okay, so this looped course of the first part of the lingual artery establishes a free movement of the hyoid bone. So wherever you see any vessel is tortuous, means the adjacent structures or the supplying structures are mobile structures. So here, this looped part of the first segment of lingual artery provides a free movement of the hyoid bone. Then the first segment extends up to the origin of this, see, the quadrilateral muscle. What is this muscle? Hyoglossus muscle. So up to the posterior border of this hyoglossus, this is first segment. Then on reaching the muscle, it passes deep to the muscle along the inferior border of the hyoglossus. So that is the second segment. Then after reaching anterior border of the same muscle, it ascends along the anterior border of the hyoglossus. So that is the third part, otherwise called, this is the profunda this is a deep branch, means it lies deep to the tongue. So arteria profunda linguae. We can call this part of the lingual artery is otherwise called arteria profunda linguae. So what are the three segments in relation to hyoglossus? The first segment up to the posterior border of hyoglossus. The second segment lies deep to the inferior border of the hyoglossus. Then the third segment, it lies deep to the tongue. And the course is just ascending along the upper anterior border of the hyoglossus. So that is the third segment. So here the first segment gives off only one branch, that is suprahyoid artery. So it supplies the adjacent structures. Then anastomosis in the midline with the fellow of opposite side. Same suprahyoid branch of the first part of lingual artery. So this is the first part of lingual artery provides only one branch, that is suprahyoid artery. Then the second segment is like deep to this hyoglossus. Here it provides two dorsal lingual branches. So the dorsal lingual branches, as the name indicates, they supply the dorsal part of the tongue. So dorsal surface of the tongue and adjacent palate and so means soft palate and tonsil. Then this third part gives off sublingual artery. So this sublingual artery is important, supplies the sublingual gland and adjacent muscle also. So but mainly it supplies the sublingual salivary gland. Then after giving branch, it passes along the undersurface of the tongue, either side of the frenulum linguae to the tip of the tongue. So at the tip, what happened? It anastomosis with the fellow of the opposite side, where it anastomosis means establishes a collateral circulation. So this is the course of the lingual artery. Then during surgical removal of the tongue, where we have to ligate this lingual artery, that is important. And before ligation, we must know the anatomical relation. What is the important anatomical relation? That is the hypoglossal nerve. So the first part of lingual artery is related superficially by the hypoglossal nerve, whereas second part of the artery is separated from the nerve by the intervention of muscles, because the nerve is superficial to the muscle, whereas artery is deep to the muscle, right? So we should ligate the lingual artery. So which part of the lingual artery? We should ligate the first part before giving any branch. So we should take care while you ligating this vessel. So what is that nerve is related here? Hypoglossal nerve. We should take care. And this is a triangular area. See, hyoid bone above hypoglossal nerve and laterally this extracarotid artery. Among these three boundaries, we can appreciate this first part of lingual artery. This is the area where we have to ligate the lingual artery. Then coming to the facial artery, it is discussed in face. So because this is the main vessel to supply the entire face. So what is the facial artery? And less contributed by the supraorbital and supratrochlear arteries, which are derived from the ophthalmic artery. And dorsal nasal also is there. That is also branched from the ophthalmic artery. So this is the facial artery. Here the course of facial artery, if you identify, throughout it is tortuous. You see, so this tortuosity of the facial artery indicates which is related to the mobile structures, and it is going to supply the mobile structures. So it should be tortuous. The entire course you see identify the tortuosity of the facial artery. Then what is the origin? So where it takes origin? So lingual artery exactly at the tip of the greater horn of the hyoid bone, whereas facial artery just above the tip of the greater horn of the hyoid bone. So the tip of the greater horn of hyoid bone is a landmark for the three important vessels. At the level of greater horn, lingual artery. Below the tip of the greater horn is a superior thyroid artery. Above the tip is a facial artery. So in this way, you should appreciate during surgery or during dissections, we should appreciate where the external carotid artery, how it gives origin to these three artery branches, right? So facial artery takes origin from the anterior aspect of the external carotid, just above the tip of the greater horn. Then it has a sinuous course, means tortuous course. First, it ascends upwards medially towards the angle of mandible. So this is the first loop course. Then it extends on to the gland where there is a notch on the submandibular gland, then passes between the gland and this bone, means medial pterygoid muscle and the gland. Then after the sinus course, it appears at the lower border of the mandible, and from here it ascends upwards with a tortuosity, more tortuous here from this onwards. So what is this landmark? Where exactly the facial artery reaches on the face? So just you can test now only. Just you clench your teeth now. By clenching, you can appreciate a muscle, a tension of the muscle. What is that? Masseter muscle. So exactly at this anteroinferior angle of masseter, this facial artery enters into the face. And at this level, the facial artery is related to two more important structures. One is a vein and a nerve, which is marginal mandibular branch of the facial nerve. So these three structures are related to this lower border of the mandible exactly at the anteroinferior angle of masseter. So this is the where you can appreciate the facial artery entering the face. So it has two parts, which is present in the cervical region, means neck region, and after passing onto the face, that is the facial part. So what are the branches from this cervical part? So first it gives off ascending palatine artery. So this ascending palatine artery, as its name ascends, so passes along the lateral wall of the pharynx and supplies the ascending soft palate and descend auditory tube also. Then the second important branch is tonsillar artery. See, this tonsillar artery is an important branch because it is a principal artery to the palatine tonsil. Then glandular branches. So within this cervical loop, the facial artery gives off a submandibular branches, means supplying the submandibular gland. Then submental artery. See here, along the lower border of the mandible, one artery is appreciated. So what is this artery? Just before entering the face, the facial artery gives off submental artery, passes along the lower border of mandible and appears in the midline where it anastomoses with this same fellow of the opposite side, same branch, where it provides a branch ascends to anastomosis with the one more branch here, mental artery. So establishes a anastomosis. So these are the branches from the cervical part. Then on the face, it provides three important branches. One is inferior labial, then superior labial, then lateral nasal. After giving these three branches, it ascends to the angle of the medial angle of the eye as an angular artery. This angular artery anastomoses with the dorsal nasal branch from the internal carotid anastomosis. So it ends by anastomosis with the branch of internal carotid artery. So this anastomosis provides a collateral circulation. So these are the three branches: inferior labial, superior labial, and lateral nasal branch. Then coming to the occipital artery. So occipital artery takes origin from the posterior aspect of the external carotid, exactly at the level of facial artery. See, anteriorly it provides facial artery. The same level it provides posteriorly occipital artery. So the occipital artery ascends towards the mastoid bone, where it lodges in a groove. Particularly, there is a groove on the medial surface of the mastoid bone, occipital groove. So this is the extent of the occipital artery from its origin, posterior aspect of the external carotid artery to the mastoid bone. So on its course, it ascends and provides first sternomastoid branches. Then at the mastoid bone, it provides a mastoid branch. So the mastoid branch passes through the foramen here, mastoid foramen, supplies the mastoid air cells and medullary also. So mostly it supplies the mastoid air cells. And after that it provides an auricular branch also. Then here see, finally an occipital branch. So this occipital branch, it provides an arterial supply to the posterior aspect of the scalp as far as vertex. So from posterior aspect, the scalp is supplied by mainly supplied by the posterior, this is occipital branch from the occipital artery. From anterior aspect, supraorbital artery. From lateral aspect, superficial temporal artery. So this is an occipital artery. Now, and it provides only one descending branch, that is very important, where it establishes a collateral circulation. Here you identify this is a descending branch. The descending branch is divides into anterior and posterior. So these anterior and posterior means in between something is there. What is that? Muscle is there. Semispinalis capitis. So semispinalis capitis here embraced by this descending branch of the occipital artery. So these descending branch means superficial and deep anastomosis with the branches of the subclavian artery. These are the branches of the subclavian artery. So thereby it provides a collateral circulation here. So these are the different branches: sternocleidomastoid branch, mastoid branch, stylomastoid branch, auricular branch. Muscular branches means adjacent other muscle. Descending branches, this for the collateral circulation. Meningeal branches also. Through cornular canal, it may passes through that foramen or canal, enters into the cranial cavity, supplies the posterior part of the dura. Then occipital branch supplies the maximum posterior aspect of the scalp. Then the last branch is the posterior auricular artery. Here you see just below the ear, so just before termination, means the external carotid artery while enters into the substance of the gland. So just before that, it provides this branch. So this posterior auricular, name itself indicates it is posterior to the auricle. So on its course, it provides first a branch, auricular branch. So that auricular branch supplies the spina, auricle of the ear. Then after that, it provides an important branch, that is the stylomastoid branch. So the stylomastoid branch passes through the stylomastoid foramen. So that foramen gives the exit for the facial nerve from skull, whereas entry to this artery. So what is this? Stylomastoid branch from the posterior auricular artery. So in this canal, it supplies the, so through that stylomastoid foramen, this artery enters into the facial bony canal, where it supplies the facial nerve. Then further it supplies the medullary also. Then after that, you see, it provides an occipital branch. Something supplies the posterior part of the scalp. Now this is the smaller terminal branch of the external carotid artery. So the smaller terminal branch just before the auricle. And just behind this superficial temporal artery, there is an important nerve, that is auriculotemporal nerve. Then this superficial temporal artery provides an important branch, that is transverse facial or transverse branch. From this superficial temporal, it passes between the zygomatic arch and parotid duct. What is the location for this branch? Between the zygomatic arch and parotid duct, you can appreciate this transverse facial branch. Then supplies these muscles. After that, it provides a middle temporal branches. The middle temporal branches pierces this temporal fascia and supplies this muscle. Then finally, it divides into anterior and posterior divisions. So these anterior and posterior divisions are supplying the most of the scalp here. Then the larger terminal branch, that is maxillary artery. So this is a line diagram. Usually it may come as a 4-mark question. So we have to draw this diagram and identify what are the branches from the maxillary artery. See, again by means of a muscle, because at just behind the neck of mandible, what happened? The external carotid arteries bifurcates, superficial temporal and maxillary. So that maxillary artery, now it is present in the infratemporal fossa. So in this temporal fossa, infratemporal fossa, a muscle, that is lateral pterygoid muscle, divides this course of the maxillary artery into 3 parts. First segment, before the muscle. Second segment, it may passes through the muscle or superficial to the muscle. And the third segment is beyond this muscle. If it is passes through the muscle, means it has 2 heads, lateral pterygoid, superior and inferior head. So between the 2 heads, it passes and leaves the infratemporal fossa and appears in the pterygoparatine fossa. So that's why it is divided into 3 parts. This is the first segment. So the first segment gives off 5 branches. Deep auricular branch, then anterior tympanic artery, the middle meningeal artery, accessory meningeal artery, and inferior alveolar arteries. These are the 5 branches taking origin from the first segment of maxillary artery. And on the surface of this lateral pterygoid, this is second segment. It provides mostly muscular branches. So the deep temporal supplying the temporalis muscle. The other muscular branches here supplying the 2 pterygoids, medial and lateral pterygoid muscles, and the buccal artery supplying the buccinator muscle. So, and one more branch to the masseter. So the muscles of mastication are supplied by this maxillary artery. Which part? Second part of the maxillary artery. And the third part is pterygopalatine artery, as it is present in the pterygopalatine fossa. But here you see all these branches posterior, first above downwards. If you see the branches, this is a posterior superior alveolar artery. I will show you in the next diagram. So first you see what are these branches. Posterior superior alveolar artery, sphenopalatine artery, greater or lesser palatine artery, then pharyngeal branches. Here you see, this is the intratemporal fossa, exactly behind the neck of mandible. So what happened? Extracarotid is bifurcating. This is superficial temporal and this is maxillary artery. So this maxillary artery identify the maxillary artery from its origin to the lower border of the lateral pterygoid. This is the first segment. And on the surface of the muscle, this is second segment. And through the gap between these two heads, it leaves this intratemporal fossa. So we cannot see the third part in the intratemporal fossa, as it leaves this intratemporal fossa through the muscle, right? So the first segment provides here, this is an inferior alveolar artery. So one by one, some of the important arteries we'll discuss. Out of all branches, the middle meningeal is very important. See, the middle meningeal artery, after taking origin from maxillary artery, it passes through a foramen, through the foramen spinosum. So through foramen spinosum, it enters into the cranial cavity. So what is the important? As the name indicates, middle meningeal artery, it supplies the major portion of the dura and these bones. So the majority of the, means the most of the dura mater is supplied by the middle meningeal artery. So immediately after entering the middle cranial fossa, it divides into 2 branches. This is anterior branch or frontal branch, and this is lateral, means posterior or parietal branch. This is anterior or frontal, and this is parietal or posterior branch. So here, in addition to these meningeal branches, this middle meningeal artery may establish as a collateral circulation with the anastomosis of branches from the orbit. So some other branches are there. So main thing, why we should know this middle meningeal artery. So if you see this thinnest portion of the temple region, which is known as pterion. So on the inner aspect of the pterion, we can see where exactly the middle meningeal artery is bifurcated, anterior and posterior. So if there is any damage to this vessel in case of injuries or skull trauma or anything, so if it is any rupture of this vessel, what happens? Immediately leads to extradural hematoma. So this extradural hematoma may compress this cerebrum. So as it lies motor area, just over the motor area of the cerebral cortex, what happens? There is a complications. So cerebral compression. So if we want to relieve the cerebral compression, we have to define this bone, particular bone in this area, and we should ligate this vessel. So very, very important. The extradural hematoma is mainly, means commonly because of this skull injury. In that case, the middle meningeal artery may be involved. Then inferior alveolar artery. See, the inferior alveolar artery, one more important branch from this first segment of maxillary artery. So it appears within the mandible after passing through a canal. This is a mandibular canal. This one. Okay. So the inferior alveolar nerve, as it enters into this mandible, here it provides branches to the teeth of the lower jaw. And finally, this inferior alveolar artery leaves its mandibular canal as a mental artery and supplies the chin. So this is a inferior alveolar artery. Before entering into the mandibular canal, this inferior alveolar artery provides one more muscular branch, that is artery to the mylohyoid muscle. So which is important to supply the mylohyoid muscle. Then what is subclavian artery? Why should we know? The major blood supply derived from the carotid system only. But the internal carotid artery, common carotid artery, they are not having any branches in the neck region. So to fulfill the nutrition supply to the head and neck, means face and neck particularly, some branches from the subclavian artery provided nutrition. Means these branches from the subclavian artery and external carotid artery, they are fulfill the nutrition levels of the neck region. So this is right subclavian artery and this is left subclavian artery. What are the branches? So this is the first part. We'll see how it is divided. So this is the what are the parts of the subclavian artery and its relations. We'll see. In relation to this muscle, this is a scalenus anterior. The subclavian artery is divided into three parts. So just medial to this scalenus anterior, this is the first part of the subclavian artery. And the part which lies deep to this muscle is the second part. And the part of the subclavian artery lateral to the muscle is the third segment. So the first segment provides an important branch, the vertebral artery. From upper aspect of the first part, it provides a branch to the vertebral artery. Then thyrocervical trunk. So this thyrocervical trunk provides the cervical branches and the inferior thyroid artery, where it establishes anastomosis between the other branches of external carotid artery. Then from lower aspect of the first segment provides internal thoracic artery. Internal thoracic artery. Then second part provides costocervical trunk. And the third part provides a branch dorsal scapular artery. Whereas on the left side, from the second part, these two branches are taking origin. So this is about the subclavian artery, how it is divided. And these are the various branches of the subclavian artery. After this, see vertebral artery. So after taking origin from this subclavian artery, it ascends towards the foramina transverse cerium of the sixth cervical vertebra. So from here onwards, it ascends through the all foramina transverse cerium of the cervical vertebra. Here you can see. So this is a through all foramina transverse cerium of the cervical vertebra except the seventh one. So then after passing through this foramina transverse cerium of the atlas, it ascends medially, then lodges in a grooved surface present on the posterior arch of the atlas. See, here it lies on the bone. So what is this bone? Lateral mass of the atlas. Then it ascends, then anastomosis with the same branch of the opposite side. So here by its course it is divided into different parts. See, the first segment from its origin to the foramina transverse cerium of the sixth cervical vertebra, and the second segment within the foramina transverse cerium of the all cervical vertebra. Then third segment present on the lateral mass. Then fourth segment is ascending part, where it anastomosis with the same branch from opposite side, and finally it forms the basilar artery. So this basilar artery provides branches and anastomosis with, here you see, this is the at the lower border of the pons. What happened? The fourth part of vertebral artery is fused to form the basilar artery, and it ascends along the basilar part of the pons and provides branches. And these are the posterior cerebral arteries, whereas anterior and middle cerebral arteries are the branches of internal carotid artery. So among these cerebral branches, arteries, there is a anastomosis at the base of the brain. So what is this anastomosis is called? Circle of Willis. It is already completed, right? So here it is establishing an anastomosis. So by this anastomosis, it provides a collateral circulation means if the subclavian artery is obstructed, so this circle of Willis provides a collateral circulation. So coming to the what is the subclavian steal syndrome? So usually the blood will pass through this aorta, then to this brachiocephalic trunk on the right side, then to the vertebral artery. This is a vertebral artery, and through the vertebral artery, it establishes here an anastomosis. Just imagine if there is any obstruction of this first part of the subclavian artery. So what happened? There is a retrograde blood flow through this vertebral artery and enters into the distal part of the subclavian artery. Thereby it supplies the upper limb. So in case of obstruction of the subclavian artery, what happened? The arterial blood is flows retrograde direction, and it fulfills the blood supply to the distal part of the subclavian artery. So what happened? So this is a which is also known as subclavian steal syndrome. So it steals some blood from this through this route. So this is also known as subclavian steal syndrome, and this condition usually asymptomatic. There is no any symptom because it is through this collateral circulation. There is no any symptoms. So it only affects 9%, just below the 9% of people. There is no any lesions. Then coming to the development. So what is this carotid system and subclavian artery? So all these blood vessels, this carotid system is derived from aortic arches. It is already completed in embryology. So what are these aortic arches? 6 paired aortic arches around the developing pharynx, primitive pharynx. Okay. So what are these? Out of 6 pairs, the first, second and fifth almost disappears. Right? The first and second, fifth pairs are almost disappears. Whereas, see here, first is disappears, second is disappears. But the first aortic arch almost disappears. It leaves only a small segment of maxillary artery. Only a small part of the maxillary artery. Whereas second aortic arch disappears mostly, but it only gives a contribution to the branch to the hyoid and stapedial arteries. Whereas third aortic arch is important. So it is same on both sides, right and left sides. So what is that? The right and left sides, it gives an initial portion of the internal carotid artery, right? So the initial portion of the internal carotid artery. Then extra carotid artery is derived from the cranial portion of the ventral aorta. Then common carotid corresponds to portion of the ventral aorta between the exit of the third and fourth aortic arches. So this is the common carotid artery. So ventral aorta between the third and fourth arches. Then this is the fifth arch, completely disappears. Then sixth arch, see the ventral portion, it gives the right branch of the pulmonary artery, whereas left side it gives left branch of pulmonary artery, and the distal part gives origin to the ductus arteriosus in intrauterine life. And in adults it is left as a ligament. Okay, so this is a sixth aortic arch. Then coming to the veins. So what are the veins? See, the venous system is provided by the jugular venous. So what are these jugular veins? Which are superficial and deep. The superficial veins are anterior jugular vein and external jugular vein. Coming to the anterior jugular vein. See, the veins from the submandibular region all are drained by a single vein, which is known as anterior jugular vein. So this anterior jugular vein ends at the medial end of the clavicle, where it drains into the external jugular vein. And between the two anterior jugular veins, there is a venous arch, which is known as intervenous communication. See, this is the communication between the two anterior jugular veins, so which is also known as jugular arch. So this is an important content of the suprasternal space or a space of 1. So this is anterior jugular vein. Then what is external jugular vein? See, the external jugular vein is how it is formed. So any vein means how it is formed is formative tributaries. And on its course, what are the veins are it is receiving means other tributaries. And finally, we should tell termination. So what is the formation of external jugular vein? The posterior division of the retromandibular vein and posterior auricular vein. These are the formative tributaries forming the external jugular vein, and it descends along the surface of the sternocleidomastoid and it terminates into the subclavian vein. Here you see, this is the termination of the subclavian vein. So on its course, it receives what are the other veins. This is the oblique jugular vein, a communication between the internal and external jugular veins. And this is a occipital vein. And sometimes along the posterior border of the sternocleidomastoid, there is a vein, posterior external jugular vein. So this posterior external jugular vein is one of the tributary. Then at the termination, it receives 3 tributaries. So at the termination, 3 important tributaries: transverse cervical vein, suprascapular vein, anterior jugular vein. After receiving, it drains into the subclavian vein. Internal jugular vein. This is also a 4-mark question. So what is the formation of internal jugular vein? See the internal jugular vein extension from the base of the skull to the medial end of the clavicle. So where the base of the skull, it is formed by a continuation of the venous sinus. What is this venous sinus? Dural venous sinus. Mostly the brain, see the superficial veins from the brain drains into superior sagittal sinus. Already sinuses are over, right? So all of the superficial veins drains into superior sagittal sinus. The superior sagittal sinus mostly continues with the right transverse sinus, and the right transverse sinus is continuous as the sigmoid sinus. So this sigmoid sinus passes through the jugular foramen, posterior part of the jugular foramen, and continues as the internal jugular vein. You see, this is the course. Sigmoid vein sinus. The sigmoid sinus at the base of the skull, it is forming a bulb dilatation, which is known as superior bulb of the internal jugular vein. Then it continues as the internal jugular vein. So on the left side, this is different. The deep cerebral veins drains into vein of Galen. That is the deep cerebral vein drains into vein of Galen. That vein of Galen is continuous as the straight sinus. And the straight sinus usually continues with the left transverse sinus. The left transverse sinus continues as the left sigmoid sinus. So left sigmoid sinus passes through the jugular foramen, then continues as the internal jugular vein. So at the formation, means what is the formative tributaries of the internal jugular vein? So this continuation of sigmoid sinus, in addition, it receives this inferior petrosal sinus. You see, along the inferior border of the petrous bone, there is a sinus, inferior petrosal sinus. So this inferior petrosal sinus leaves the cranial cavity through anterior part of jugular foramen. So these are the 2 tributaries, inferior petrosal sinus, sigmoid sinus, both fused to form the internal jugular vein. That's the beginning of the internal jugular vein. Then what are the tributaries? On its course, you see, it receives first pharyngeal veins, pharyngeal vein. Then common facial vein. See, the facial vein, this is a facial vein, and anterior division of the retromandibular vein. Both are fused to form the common facial vein. So that common facial vein drains into the internal jugular vein. Then beyond that, lingual vein. The lingual vein drains into the internal jugular vein. And below that, superior thyroid vein and middle thyroid vein. Sometimes the occipital vein also drains into this internal jugular vein. Then how it is terminating? See, close to the termination, it receives thoracic duct on the left side, whereas lymphatic duct on right side. So how it is terminates? Just behind the medial end of clavicle, it is unites with the corresponding subclavian vein, where it forms the brachiocephalic vein. So just you see, supratrochlear vein, supraorbital vein fused to form angular vein. Angular vein continues as facial vein, and the facial vein receives the anterior division of retromandibular vein, where it forms the common facial vein, right? Whereas superficial temporal vein, maxillary vein fuse to form the retromandibular vein. This retromandibular is further divided into anterior division, posterior division. So this posterior division joins with the posterior auricular where it forms the external jugular vein. So you may feel your pulse in the arteries of the head and neck, just before the ear, in front of ear, superficial temporal vein artery, right? Superficial temporal artery. Just at the before the angle of mandible, at the anteroinferior angle of, see, this is a muscle, masseter muscle. At the anteroinferior angle, you can feel the pulsation of the facial artery. And just in front of the sternocleidomastoid, at the level of C3, junction between C3 and C4, what is that? Carotid pulse. So carotid artery stenosis. What is this carotid artery stenosis? See, this is mostly at the bifurcation. What is this? By the formation, the common carotid artery is common site for the atherosclerosis, right? So because of that, what happened? You know the formation of the plaques. So after that, this carotid artery may be, the lumen may be reduced, it means it may lead to stenosis. So risk of the transient ischemic attack or maybe leads to stroke. So treatment can involve the pharmacological means by giving aspirin or warfarin or carotid endarterectomy. So is the most common surgical intervention. So in which what happened, they will remove this atherosclerotic material by doing this procedure. And usually you see, this is a dilatation, means venous engorgement. So what is this venous engorgement? Due to the increased pressure. So we can easily appreciate in old ages also. So here you see a part of the external jugular vein is dilated, means this is a venous engorgement of the external jugular vein. So what is this central venous pressure? It is measured by a catheter placed through the either subclavian or the internal jugular veins. And this central venous pressure is monitored using pressure transducer. Okay, and CVP is elevated by overhydration or maybe heart failure or pulmonary artery stenosis. So it leads to venous engorgement. Then catheterization. So what is this procedure? It is used to diagnose and treat the cardiovascular conditions. So for this catheterization, they will use this select this internal jugular vein or external jugular vein or the basilic vein, means as it is a direct continuation with this subclavian vein. So they can choose this vessel also. So this is about the blood vessels. So all these blood vessels, how they are supplying, how the entire brain, even the interior of the structure, means what are the brain, how it is drained and how it is face is drained, how the neck is drained, means we should know the jugular venous system. Then main blood supply means arterial system derived from carotid artery system, and less it is contributed by the subclavian artery. Okay, thank you.